Hi, I'm Kelsey.
Hi, I'm Sean.
Hi, I'm Curtis.
For this video presentation, we're exploring the argument that well-being and happiness are not universal concepts but socially constructed across different types of cultures.
We have differentiated well-being and happiness for this presentation. Well-being describes a value that is categorized by health, happiness, prosperity, and welfare. Happiness describes a state of mind.
Because this idea differs across culture, we have each chosen a culture that represents different values for their well-being and happiness. For my part, I'm exploring the Chinese people, like how traditional Chinese culture influenced Chinese people's well-being and happiness.
And for my example, I've chosen Indigenous Australian culture and how that affects their well-being and happiness.
And for mine, I've chosen the United States.
For this presentation, the key stakeholders are policymakers, the education system,
Firms and government.
And managers.
Today I'm going to talk about how traditional culture in China affects Chinese people's well-being and happiness. Traditional culture in China is focused on Confucianism. One of the Confucian values is filial piety, that means family. According to Zheng, a parent will educate their kids through Confucian value, and school will teach their students through Confucian value. Thus, one said Chinese people's daily life and educational system are heavily influenced by Confucian value. Family is one of the factors that influence Chinese people's well-being. According to Maslow hierarchy, group and family belongs to the second level of needs, which is belonging and love. Thus, for the Chinese people, well-being could be like stay with their family or chilling out with their family, as family for the Chinese people is extremely important. Especially, I will focus on the relationship between family and expatriate. Expatriate will be sent to overseas to complete their company assignment, but most of the expatriate will stay in overseas by themselves. So family might influence their well-being, or as they stay in overseas by themselves, they will feel loneliness without their family. Thus, I recommend companies should take family into consideration, like not only move their family to overseas, but also provide some employment consulting for their family, like to balance their family income. Also, providing multicultural training for them to reducing culture shock in overseas. Another Confucian value is harmony. According to Li, Chinese people always said happiness harmony, and harmony can be divided by society harmony and family harmony. Let me teach you a lesson. In China, they always say 国家, which means country, but this is two different words. 国 means country, 家 means family. You have to have a society harmony, then you can have a family harmony. And I would take the corruption as an example. Corruption will influence the society harmony. According to Li and N, they said corruption will cause the economy decline and also increase income inequality. The decline of income level will decrease the people happiness. So I recommend the government they should combat corruption in society to increase the people happiness, and specifically government should set up some reward system in society, and citizens could report some corruption issue in society, and governments should show the determination to combat the corruption in society.
The United States are one of the wealthiest countries in the world, with the 8th highest GDP per capita. Despite the USA's financial wealth, it ranks very poorly on Happy Planet Index, ranking 108th out of 140 countries. This would imply that the US material wealth mostly does not transfer to sustainable well-being. They ranked 18th in terms of well-being, but had incredibly low scores when it came to matters such as inequality. This means that the high levels of well-being is not reflected throughout the country. Economic inequality lies with policymakers, but societal inequality is endorsed by followers as much as it is leaders. The United States ranks very high in Hofstede's cultural dimension of individualism. People are mostly focused on looking after themselves and their immediate families. At a firm level, establishing stronger bonds and relationships would create a more family-based environment, and due to the low power distance, it would create a more collaborative environment for individuals to express their thoughts with their managers. This could be done through open communication forums and other inclusive events. A UN report has recently found Americans to be at the most unhappiest they've ever been. They have suggested that this is due to an addiction epidemic. This can include anything from substance abuse and gambling to social media and screen time usage. It is apparent many waste a lot of time on social media in the pursuit of happiness. On average, people are spending 6 hours per day on devices. This has an indirect effect on happiness as it replaces time that could be spent having face-to-face interactions. A psychological need represented in Maslow's hierarchy of needs is loving and belonging. This relates to relationships, giving and receiving affection, and being part of a group, whether this is family, friends, or work. In the workplace, it is often difficult to avoid devices as they are efficient form of communication. Managers should identify a time slot a week in order for team members and colleagues to interact with one another. This could be through hosting a morning tea or social gathering once a week in order for individuals to interact with one another, giving them a sense of belonging and the love that they seek.
From the perspective of Indigenous people in Australia, their capabilities require connections with the land and spiritual or cultural knowledge that makes these Indigenous people feel well and happy. In a study by Brocky, Sangha, and Costanza in 2015 showed a link between ecosystems and Indigenous people's well-being in Australia. These nature-related values possessed by many Indigenous people go beyond material and financial wealth, which improve their overall well-being. This is shown in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, taken from the First Nations perspective, where community actualization makes up a large section of their needs. Through caring for nature and being in touch, the community needs will be met and will go for many generations. From a policymaker's perspective, a way to improve these Indigenous people's well-being is to incorporate them into the policymaking process and decisions for what happens to the country's nature and ecosystem. In regards to the happiness of Indigenous Australian people, a study by Nicholas Biddle and Hannah Swee in 2012 showed that generally people's happiness increased when they are more involved and knowledgeable on their Indigenous culture, language, and history. This can be done through cultural events, ceremonies, or organisations that can all help increase the happiness of Indigenous people. A way that can be improved, a way that a group will be able to improve this is through the education system in Australia. There should be requirements for Indigenous Australians from year 1 to 13 to learn about their culture, language, and history. This will increase their connection to their culture, incorporate more values of community and heritage, and improve their overall happiness.
Through extensive research, we've concluded that well-being and happiness are not universal and are both socially constructed across different cultures.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Hofstede's cultural dimension theory have been applied to each of these three cultures in order to gain a more in-depth understanding of their values.
China and United States and Indigenous Australia are just three examples of how cultural values vary, affecting daily life. Recommendations have been suggested in order for different stakeholders to overcome those cultural differences.
Constructed across different types of culture. Damn, okay, start that again. Take it from the top.
Hi, I'm Curtis.
For this video presentation, cut it out.
Put it on, do not disturb.
Today I'm...
Oh, that was me. I've lost my assignment. Hang on. Thank you!
Yeah.